Why the most successful people intentionally make life harder, and why you should too. Okay, listen up. Imagine this. I'm standing on a mountain ledge. Not some gentle slope, I mean a sheer drop. Below me, nothing but mist. And beside me, a guide is looking at me like I've lost my mind. He says, "Sir, the easy path is that way. It's paved, it's safe. There's even a little cafe at the top. But I'm looking at this sheer rock face. This impossible climb, and I'm grinning. Why? Because I know something that most people don't. I know that the most successful, the most resilient, the most alive people I've ever met, they intentionally make their lives harder. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why that's the most powerful secret to not just surviving, but thriving in a world that constantly tries to make you soft." We're talking about a fundamental shift in how you approach everything: your work, your relationships, your challenges, even just getting out of bed in the morning. Get ready, because this isn't just theory. This is a blueprint for building a life that's not just easy, but unbreakable. Think about it. Every fiber of our being, every advertisement, every convenience store around the corner, it's all pushing us towards ease. Fast food, express lanes, instant gratification. Our brains are wired to conserve energy, to find the path of least resistance. It feels good, right? It feels comfortable. And for a long time, I chased that comfort. I took the easy road. If I could skip the gym, I skipped it. If I could put off that difficult conversation, I did. If I could order takeout instead of cooking, you bet I did. And you know what happened? I got soft. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Challenges felt overwhelming. Setbacks felt like catastrophes. I was like a plant grown in a climate-controlled greenhouse, protected from everything, but utterly fragile the moment a real storm hit. Then, I started noticing something peculiar about the people I admired. Not just the wealthy, but the truly successful. The artists who pushed boundaries. The athletes who broke records. The entrepreneurs who built empires out of nothing. The quiet heroes who faced adversity with unwavering calm. They weren't avoiding the hard stuff. They were seeking it. They were running towards the discomfort that everyone else was running from. It was like they understood a hidden law of the universe. Strength isn't built in comfort. It's forged in fire. I remember a moment that changed everything for me. I was working on a project. Something big and important. There was a critical phase that required intense focus, long hours, and dealing with incredibly frustrating obstacles. My initial instinct was to delegate the hardest parts, to find shortcuts, to minimize the pain. I complained. I procrastinated. I felt overwhelmed. Then I saw a friend. Someone I knew had faced far worse and emerged stronger. I asked him how he did it. His answer was simple, almost brutal. He said, "I don't avoid the pain. I lean into it. I actively look for the hardest thing on my plate and I do that first. Every single day." It hit me like a lightning bolt. We think success is about getting around the hard stuff. But what if success is actually about getting through the hard stuff? And in doing so, becoming the kind of person who can handle anything? What if the difficulty isn't the obstacle, but the path itself? This wasn't just some productivity hack. This was a philosophy, an ancient one. As it turns out, the Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They didn't have gyms or cold showers or business deals. But they had life, with all its unpredictable, messy, painful reality. And they developed practices not to make life easy, but to make themselves strong for whatever life threw at them. They intentionally introduced discomfort into their lives. Small things, like eating plain food when they could afford rich meals, or sleeping on the floor when they had beds. Not because they were ascetics who hated pleasure, but because they were training themselves to be okay when things weren't easy. Training themselves so that if fortune ever took everything away, their wealth, their status, their comfort, they would still be okay. They would still possess the only thing that truly mattered, their inner freedom and their character. Think about the times you felt most proud of yourself. Was it when you took the easy way out? Or was it when you pushed through something difficult? When you finished that tough workout? When you had that uncomfortable conversation? When you stayed up late to finish something important? When you resisted that immediate temptation for a greater long-term gain? Those moments of choosing difficulty, of embracing the struggle, Those are the moments we build character. Those are the moments we prove to ourselves what we're capable of. But this isn't just about feeling good about yourself. This is about building real-world capability. When you intentionally expose yourself to discomfort, whether it's physical, like exercising when you don't want to, or taking a cold shower, or mental, like tackling a complex problem that makes your brain hurt, or having a crucial conversation you're dreading, you are expanding your capacity. You're building resilience. You're teaching your brain and body that uncomfortable isn't dangerous. It's just uncomfortable, and you can handle uncomfortable. You can move through it. I started small. I began taking cold showers. Man, the first time, every cell in my body screamed in protest. It was shocking, uncomfortable, everything I usually ran from. But I stood there, under the freezing water, focusing on my breath, just enduring. And when I got out, there was this incredible rush. This feeling of accomplishment. This sense that if I could do that, maybe I could do other hard things too. Then I started doing the hardest task on my work list first thing in the morning. My brain would try to trick me, find excuses, tell me to do the easy stuff first. But I'd force myself to sit down and tackle the beast. And every time I conquered it, the rest of the day felt lighter, easier. It wasn't magic, it was training. I was training my discipline muscle. I was training my courage muscle. This is where the real magic happens. By willingly choosing the hard path, you are fundamentally changing your relationship with difficulty. You're no longer a victim of circumstance, hoping life stays easy. You become an active participant, a trainer of your own character. You start seeing challenges not as problems to be avoided, but as opportunities to test and strengthen yourself. You welcome them, even seek them out, because you know they are the raw material from which resilience is built. It's counterintuitive, right? Everything in modern society tells us to optimize for ease, for convenience, for comfort, but the deepest wisdom, both ancient and modern, whispers a different truth. The path to strength, to mastery, to true success, is paved with intentional struggle. It's not about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about choosing productive discomfort, the kind that builds you up, piece by piece, into someone capable of handling anything. It's about becoming anti-fragile, not just surviving shocks, but actually getting better because of them. And it all starts with a simple choice. When presented with the easy way and the hard way, which one will you choose? The answer to that question holds the key to unlocking a level of strength and success you might not even realize is possible. But there's a deeper level to this. It's not just about building physical or mental toughness. It's about mastering your internal world. Because the greatest difficulties we face aren't external. They're the ones happening inside our own heads. Fear, doubt, anxiety, the constant craving for comfort. And guess what? Intentionally making life harder is the ultimate training ground for mastering these internal demons. It teaches you self-control. It teaches you that you are stronger than your impulses. It teaches you patience, perseverance, and a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself when things get tough. This is just the beginning. We've only scratched the surface of how intentionally choosing difficulty transforms you from the inside out. Get ready, because the next segment dives deep into the ancient secrets that explain why this counterintuitive approach is the ultimate path to freedom. Okay, you've seen that successful people don't just tolerate difficulty. They seek it, and you've felt that little spark. That recognition that maybe the easy path isn't the one you truly want. But why does this work? What's the philosophical engine driving this seemingly crazy idea of making life harder? Let's dig into the bedrock. It's not about being a masochist. It's about understanding human nature and the true source of our suffering and our strength. We suffer not because of external events themselves, but because of our judgments about those events. Traffic isn't inherently bad, our judgment that it shouldn't be happening. That it's ruining our day. That's what causes the frustration. Losing money isn't inherently a catastrophe, our fear of what it means. Our attachment to comfort, that's where the real pain lies. The Stoics hammered this point home. External things, wealth, health, reputation, comfort, even life itself, are indifference. They are not inherently good or bad. The only true good is virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance, and the only true evil is the opposite of virtue. Now, Here's where intentionally making life harder comes in. By voluntarily exposing ourselves to discomfort, to inconvenience, to minor forms of deprivation, we are training ourselves to see these, indifference, for what they are. When you choose to walk to the store instead of driving, even though it's raining, you're practicing recognizing that being a little wet isn't a disaster. It's just being a little wet. When you choose to eat a simple, perhaps bland, meal when you could have something delicious, you're practicing detaching your happiness from external pleasure. You're teaching yourself that your contentment doesn't depend on having the best, the easiest, the most comfortable option available at all times. This practice, the Stoics called ascesis, a word that gives us our modern word, asceticism. But in their context, it meant training, discipline, exercise. They weren't denying themselves pleasure out of self-hatred. They were training themselves for freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of external circumstances. Freedom from the constant craving for more comfort, more pleasure, more ease. Because if your happiness depends on always having things easy, you are a slave to everything outside of yourself. Any little bump in the road, any minor inconvenience, can derail you. But if you've trained yourself to be okay even when things are hard, then nothing external can truly disturb your inner peace. I started experimenting with this in more ways. For a week, I decided I would only take public transport, even if driving was faster. It was inconvenient, it required planning. Sometimes buses were late, but you know what? It forced me to be more present, to observe the world around me, to practice patience. It broke my dependence on the car. I realized that I could get around. I could be effective, even without the usual level of convenience I was accustomed to. It was a small thing, but it felt like reclaiming a little piece of my autonomy from the grip of convenience culture. Another exercise. Deliberately postponing gratification. Seeing something I wanted to buy immediately, but choosing to wait a day, or a week, not denying myself entirely, but training the impulse control. That craving, that, I want it now, feeling, it's powerful. But every time you resist it, every time you choose deliberate discomfort or delay, you chip away at its power. You strengthen your rational mind's ability to override your impulses. This isn't just good for your wallet, it's fundamental training for self-mastery. Think about dieting, exercise, saving money, learning a new skill. They all require this same ability to choose the harder, more beneficial long-term path over the easier, instantly gratifying one. And by practicing this with small things daily, you build the strength to do it with the big things when they matter most. Consider the power of voluntary discomfort in building perspective. When you deliberately expose yourself to minor hardships, like being cold, being hungry for a short time, or physical exertion, it changes your appreciation for ease. That warm bed feels incredible after you've spent some time in the cold morning air. That simple meal tastes amazing when you've allowed yourself to feel true hunger. You stop taking comfort for granted. You cultivate gratitude for the things you have, even the basic necessities that you previously overlooked because they were always there, always easy. And this shift in perspective is profound. It means that when real hardship inevitably strikes, loss, illness, financial trouble, whatever life throws at you, you are better equipped to handle it. You've already practiced being uncomfortable. You've already proven to yourself that you can function, that you can endure, even when things aren't ideal. You're not starting from zero resilience. You have a reservoir of strength built from all those small, voluntary acts of choosing the harder path. Philosophically, this connects deeply to the Stoic concept of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It's not about being a pessimist. It's about wisely contemplating the difficulties that could happen, and mentally rehearsing how you would handle them. By intentionally introducing minor difficulties into your life, you're not just thinking about hardship, you're experiencing it in controlled doses. It's like a vaccine, a small, weakened version of the virus that builds immunity to the real thing. You inoculate yourself against the shock and despair that can cripple those who have only ever known ease. I started doing this mentally too. Every morning, I'd spend a few minutes contemplating potential challenges of the day. What if I faced criticism? What if something went wrong? What if I felt frustrated or angry? And then, instead of just worrying, I'd think about how I should respond, based on reason and Stoic principles. How could I respond with patience? With courage? With wisdom? This mental rehearsal, combined with the physical and emotional training of voluntary discomfort, creates an almost impenetrable inner fortress. This isn't just about being tough. It's about building character. It's about becoming the kind of person who isn't blown off course by every little gust of wind. It's about cultivating inner stability and freedom. It's about realizing that your power lies not in controlling the external world, which you can't, but in controlling your own responses, which you absolutely can, with practice. And the practice starts with choosing the hard thing. Every day, in small ways, you can make that choice. You can build that strength. You can forge that freedom. It's waiting for you on the path less traveled, the one that's intentionally a little steeper, a little rockier, a little harder. But be warned. This journey changes you in ways you can't predict, unlocking potential you never knew you had. The next segment is where we get intensely practical, showing you exactly how to apply this in your life starting today, and revealing the surprising ultimate outcome of embracing the difficult path. Alright, you're still here. That tells me you're not afraid of the hard truth, and you're ready to stop chasing comfort and start building real strength. We've talked about why intentionally making life harder is crucial, the philosophical roots, the mental shift it creates. Now, let's get our hands dirty. How do you actually do this? How do you weave intentional difficulty into your everyday life without it feeling like punishment, but like power building? It starts small. Forget climbing Everest tomorrow. Think micro challenges. When you wake up, instead of hitting snooze, get up immediately. That little jolt of discomfort, that tiny victory over your impulse for ease, that's a win. When you're faced with a choice between the stairs and the elevator, take the stairs. When you're grocery shopping, carry the basket instead of pushing a cart. If it's a few items. When you're slightly hungry between meals, let yourself feel it for a bit instead of immediately reaching for a snack. These aren't major trials, but they are deliberate choices to embrace a moment of discomfort, to practice enduring something you could easily avoid. Think about communication. It's often easier to send a text or email than to have a difficult conversation face to face or over the phone. Intentionally choose the harder path. Have the conversation. Practice articulating yourself clearly, listening patiently, managing your own emotions in real time. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it builds crucial social and emotional skills that texting simply can't. Apply this to your work or studies. When you encounter a challenging problem, your first instinct might be to skip it, delegate it, or look for an easy answer online. Intentionally choose to wrestle with it yourself for a set amount of time. Feel the frustration, the mental strain. This is the intellectual equivalent of lifting a heavy weight. It's hard in the moment, but it builds your problem-solving muscles. It teaches you perseverance and deepens your understanding in a way that finding a quick answer never will. Another powerful practice from the Stoics is voluntary exposure to the possibility of loss. They would sometimes imagine losing everything they held dear, their possessions, their friends, their status, not in a morbid way, but to appreciate what they had and to prepare themselves mentally for the fact that these external things are only on loan from fortune. We can apply this today. Spend some time contemplating the impermanence of things you rely on. Imagine your internet goes down for a day. Imagine your car breaks down. Imagine losing access to your usual comforts. How would you cope? What resources, internal and external, would you rely on? This mental exercise, combined with occasionally choosing minor physical discomforts, builds a profound inner resilience. You become less dependent on things going right, and more confident in your ability to handle things going wrong. Let's talk about the Mr. Beast aspect of this, the seemingly extreme challenges. You see him doing crazy, difficult things for entertainment, right? But there's a deeper principle at play. By setting absurdly difficult goals, like staying buried alive, or giving away millions of dollars in complex ways, he's not just creating content. He's creating situations that force him and his team to be incredibly resourceful, persistent, adaptable, and collaborative. They are intentionally creating massive difficulties that forge capability and resilience under pressure. While you might not bury yourself alive, you can apply this principle. Set goals that are slightly beyond what you think you're capable of. Sign up for that race that scares you. Propose that ambitious project at work. Learn that incredibly difficult skill. The pursuit of these challenging goals. The process of struggling and overcoming obstacles along the way. That's where the real growth happens. The outcome is almost secondary to the transformation you undergo in the process. Now, a crucial point. This isn't about being reckless or putting yourself in unnecessary danger. It's about chosen, productive discomfort. It's about pushing your boundaries in ways that build you up, not break you down. It requires wisdom, the stoic virtue of knowing what is genuinely good and bad, and what is indifferent. Choosing a difficult challenge to learn a valuable skill? Wise. Choosing a difficult challenge just to impress people or get attention? Not so wise. The intention matters. The goal is self-mastery and resilience, not proving something to others. The ultimate outcome of consistently choosing the harder path is not just resilience or toughness. It's freedom. Freedom from fear, because you've faced discomfort and survived. Freedom from craving, because you've trained yourself to be content with less. Freedom from the tyranny of external approval, because your worth is built on your internal character. Forged in the fire of chosen difficulties, not on easy external successes. You become less afraid of failure because you see it as a learning opportunity, a chance to train harder. You become less afraid of loss because you know your true wealth is within. Imagine standing on that mountain ledge again. This time, you don't see an impossible climb, you see an opportunity. An opportunity to test your limits, to build strength, to experience the profound satisfaction that comes from overcoming something truly difficult. You're not hoping for an easy path, you're seeking the challenging one. Because you know it will lead you to become the strongest, most capable version of yourself. So, here's the challenge. Starting today, identify one small thing you can do that involves choosing the slightly harder option. Maybe it's taking the stairs. Maybe it's having that conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's tackling the most dreaded task on your list first. Just one thing. Do it. Feel the discomfort. Acknowledge it. And push through. Then, do it again tomorrow. And the day after that. Make it a practice. Make it a habit. Because every single time you choose the harder path, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. A person who is resilient, capable, free, and truly successful. Not because life was easy, but because you became strong enough to handle its beautiful, challenging complexity. That is the power of intentional difficulty. Embrace it, and watch your life transform.